Welcome to The Third Chair, a show about real people, real stories, real life. And here are your hosts for The Third Chair, Peter Grigg and Doug Bazeski.
It's a miracle. We found a guest on our show, but we had to fly her in from Maine.
Maine, that's over half the country away.
That's a long ways away, and it took our entire budget. But we have the
For
privilege.
5 shows.
For 5 shows, we have the privilege of having Tracy Flewelling with us, author.
I read her book.
Yes.
And coincidence.
An amazing story, a love affair with her husband, a difficult journey through cancer and death, and recovery on the other side. We will have a lot of interesting stories and lessons to learn tonight. Please welcome Tracy. Welcome back to The Third Chair. I'm Peter, that's Doug, and you knew that
welcome
already.
us back when we just started.
That's right, that's amazing. We are back during the new year, and we have a special guest with us, Tracy Flewelling, who has flown in from Maine.
We've done 12 episodes because it's April or February, one of those months.
Well, you know what? We're very organized. We're planning ahead.
I don't even know what month it is.
I don't even know. We're on one of the days of Christmas. So, Tracy...
But it is 2022. Whatever.
It is 2022.
I do know that.
2022. You've flown in from Maine. My first question for you is, are your arms tired?
I should have never...
I have pretty good arms. I'm good for it. I'm pretty scrappy.
I should have never bought you that dad's joke.
Yeah, you never should have bought me the dad joke book. A lot of very corny jokes. So Tracy's with us, and we're going to have a couple episodes together. And you have an amazing story. You married the man of your dreams and then went through some really hard times, and we really think that some of the things you share would help a lot of people. And so we're grateful that you're willing to talk about this. Wow. So you were married to a man named NEAL. Mm-hmm. All right. Tell us about how that all came about, the love story. How did you meet him? Tell us all the details that'll make me cry and want to get a tissue.
Should I get you a Kleenex? Okay.
Yes, tell us, please.
Oh, it's such a good story. So I was down south, and I worked at Winn-Dixie. So you could say that movie Because of Winn-Dixie, that's kind of our story. It's Because of Winn-Dixie.
So did you go to the movie?
We bought the movie.
Oh, you bought the movie
years
because
later,
of that?
because we met many years before the movie.
Yes.
You're from the South.
I'm from yeah.
So you're Southern girl. Was that like Georgia kind of?
Well, I was born in Texas, and then our family, we did actually live in Australia for 5 years.
That's a little south too.
That's quite south.
Very south, yeah.
And then we moved to Maryland, and then we ended up down in Georgia. And then actually what happened is our father left our mom and kept moving, and we stayed put with our mom. So we were in Georgia, and NEAL was from Maine, Aroostook County, Maine, which is potato farming country, and they're just, this would have been back in...
Is it a name of a county because it doesn't have a town in it? Or
It's just so big, it's the county.
The
county, Aroostook County, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So they... there was just not, for guys coming and girls coming out of high school, there wasn't a lot of work options. So NEAL ended up down in Georgia working for a company there, and he lived with his brother and a couple other guys. They all knew each other, and they used to come to the grocery store because, and they would come put their laundry in the laundromat, and then they would come to the grocery store, and we just saw each other. And actually, it's kind of funny. NEAL had, he had long hair, and he had a beard, and he had most beautiful eyes, just kind eyes. And, rips in his jeans. All he had was a motorbike. And
was it a Harley?
No, that's a hobby. No, it was a Kawasaki.
A Kawasaki? That was like Japanese.
Yeah. Yeah, his nephew used to say a Kawasaki's a piece of dirt. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so he would just come through. They were all very friendly, and they would come through the lines, and we just started talking. He said he first saw me in November, but we just sort of barely, hi, how you doing, be polite to your customers. But come along, maybe, must have been sometime in March, he would come through my line and we started really talking. And one day he said to me, would you like to come to Bible study? And I said, well, he's like this just guy off the street asking me to buy. I said, well, what kind of Bible study? And he said, oh, just us guys at the house. And I'm like, I'm a little smarter than that. I'm not going to a house with a bunch of guys from Bible study. I'm not doing that. So I said,
talk about King David or something.
I'm not going to be
What part of the Bible are you talking about?
I'm going to be in the harem. So I said, well, I'll come to Bible study with you if you come to church with me. And he said, okay. So we went to church, and then I went to Bible study, and it turns out us guys is a Maine saying, or it was back then, I don't know if it is now, but there was more girls than guys. And actually the pastor who married us was leading the Bible study. So it was really, really safe, but it was a wise thing that I did. So we started talking on the phone. This would have been sometime in March. And then in April, I was working, and he came through my line. I was in the express lane. And so I was checking out customers really fast. And he came through, and we were a little bit like, well, hi, how you doing?
You were flirting.
No, we were shy. We weren't,
yeah, I know your church.
Wait a minute, he didn't have much time because...
you got to flirt quick, and he just had these gorgeous eyes. So anyway, so he bought a gallon of milk, and we had our little shy, and then he left, and I was like...
So he only bought a gallon of milk?
Gallon of milk,
Oh, you know why he was there.
Yeah, I was sort of deflated for the day. Oh, that was my NEAL moment. And so I checked out a few more customers, and then I turned around, and Neil's back, and he's holding his gallon of milk, and he said, do you have a paper bag? Because I'm on my motorbike, and I can't strap the milk on it, slides around.
Well, he's creative.
He's very creative. And I said, sure. So the customer that I'm taking care of is just standing there watching, and I'm being polite. And so I hand him a paper bag, and he said, would you like to go out on Friday? And I said, I have to work on Friday. How about Thursday? And he said, okay. So he left. And the guy the next customer was like, well, that was easy. Maybe I should ask her out. So we went out on our first...
Bill of the express lane.
Yeah. No. So I finished work. We went out. Our first date was April 6th, I think. Or might have been, how interesting, because Neil passed away on April 8th. How interesting. So anyway, either it was April 6th or 8th. It was 6th. And then he asked me to marry him on May 15th. And then we got married on May 20th.
Wow.
1 year later.
Oh, okay.
And that he used to love to tell that. He would always do that in our story. And really, the only reason we waited, because we knew. But Doug and mine's mom was going through cancer. And it was just a really hard time for her. She had been through a divorce, and she had cancer. And she was, in the 80s, man, tough treatment. I mean, they're tough now, too. I'm not saying that it's
there's some better treatments.
There are some better. Yeah. They've come a long way. And we were just like, let's just give her a break. And so we did. We gave her a break, and we got married a year later.
Wow.
That's our love story. And
you're not going to give us details in the 6 weeks in between?
I do have a really personal story.
Whatever you're comfortable sharing.
I'm very comfortable to share. So we were dating, and Neil was just like this awesome guy. And one of the things that had happened previously was when my dad left my mom, the way it kind of all came down, I stopped crying. I mean, I didn't cry for a couple years at all. I wanted to cry. I could feel it down in there, but I just couldn't cry. It was just my emotional response. And so Neil and I started dating, and I did not realize what was going on, but I was beginning to feel safe. Because that's one thing I realized, that I was always safe with Neil. He was a safe person. And so one of our dates, before he asked me to marry him, it was a daytime date, and we finished, and we'd gotten back to where he lived with the guys, and I was going to get in my car and drive home. And we were sitting sitting in the car talking, and he looked at me and he said, Tracy, you're so pretty. And I went, ah! And I haven't stopped crying since.
Wow.
And I'm so grateful to be able to cry. Tears are a very good language.
Wow.
And it took me years to realize that I had finally, I did not feel safe when my dad left. And it took that time to have this young man who was solid in God, solid person, continually safe. But that was within the first 6 weeks that I felt safe enough to cry. But I'm really amazed that he did actually ask me to marry him after that. Because, like, wouldn't you run?
I mean, from a woman who's crying hysterically when
you said she was pretty.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
wow.
doesn't that worry you a little bit?
Yeah. What would happen? Yeah, if you asked, can you cook macaroni and cheese?
Don't even bring that up. That's another bad story. Oh my goodness.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have the question because this is something we all think about: when Neil met your mother. And we'll talk about that when we come right back.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Grigg, a life and recovery coach with Pikes Peak Recovery Coaching. I've had the pleasure and privilege of helping people for over 25 years. I want to hear your story, support and encourage you while we partner together to help you reach your goals. I can help you. I am certain I can help you. I can be your guide, role model, resource person, and help you get results. What's my coaching frameworks? I'm an eclectic coach drawing from a variety of disciplines and frameworks with evidence-based proven methods. What would you like to work on? Some popular areas are goal setting and attainment, building and maintaining motivation, finding purpose, personal development, recovery from drug and alcohol addiction problems, health and wellness, life planning, athletic and creative artists, performance enhancement, maybe something else. Just ask me. I would love to help you. You can find my services on Fiverr.com. Welcome back to the third chair. I'm Peter. That is Doug. And we have Tracy Flewelling, who has flew in from Maine to film a couple of episodes. And thank you for being here, Tracy.
Thank you.
When we last left off at the break, we were asking the question, Neil, biker, beard, long hair, non-Harley, but motorcycle, coming to take you out on a date, and he has to meet your mom, or was he just delivering the milk? What was going on?
Well, we were still just in talking stages because we had a very short dating, obviously 6 weeks before we got engaged. And I was out of town. I was actually on a youth retreat. And Neil was out on his bike, and I told him where I lived, and he thought, well, I'll just go by and see, if she's home from her youth retreat. So he swung by, and
During the 6 weeks?
during the 6 weeks, yeah.
So you're gone part of this?
Part of it, yeah. Yeah, it was just a weekend thingy.
Oh, okay.
So Doug was home, my brother was home, and Mom was home, and my mom's hair was in rollers. And what Neil did not know is that my mom didn't want anybody to ever see her with her hair in rollers. So he found the house, and he went and he knocked on the door. And as Neil tells the story, the door opened about that wide. And this voice said, "What?" And he said, "Well, I was just wondering if Tracy was home." And she said, "No," and shut the door. And he was like, "Oh, I don't know if I can do this or not."
Oh, wow.
So, but my mom actually ended up probably loving Neil more than me.
Wow.
In the end.
So he won her over.
He did win her over.
That is fantastic. Yeah. Now, I have a follow-up question. You did the relatively fast engagement. Did you have, like, pastors and people coming up to you, "Oh, this is happening too fast. Think about this. You need to slow this down. The guy's a biker. He looks like one of those Hell's Angels guys." Yeah.
How old were you at the time?
I would have been 19 and he was 20. No, because we didn't tell anybody. Because we didn't want my mom to be stressed because she was going through cancer. So we were engaged. But
But
we
she-
didn't tell anybody.
Oh, it was a secret
It was a
engagement.
So
Oh,
when did
man.
you let her know?
I think Neil gave me my ring in September. So that's when we learned. So she had from April until September to. That sounds like
Wow.
a movie.
It
line, from
does.
April to
Oh,
September.
wow,
yeah,
that's incredible.
To get to know him.
Okay.
Well, you make a movie to 42 days. Of the
Um,
The courtship of Neil
Neil,
and Tracy.
42 days.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
6
good.
weeks or
Yeah.
something.
yeah,
like
the
that.
courtship that Neil wrote. Yeah.
Can I answer a question
Yeah, of course you
that you
may-
didn't? Well, you were talking earlier about macaroni and cheese.
Yes, I was
Okay,
just about to ask
please.
that, but
So,
go ahead. Macaroni and cheese.
I really did not come into our marriage preloaded with a lot of domestic ability. I just didn't, Neil taught me how to cook more so than anyone.
Wow.
But I did learn to make macaroni and cheese
Nice.
from my mom. My mom made really good, creamy macaroni and cheese.
Mm-hmm.
So one day, early on in our marriage, I thought, I am going to make macaroni and cheese. And he's going to swoon at my feet. So I did. I made a really good batch of macaroni and cheese, and I served him the macaroni and cheese. And when we were done, he didn't really say he ate it, but he didn't say that much. And at the end of the meal, I was like waiting for the rave reviews, and he didn't really say anything. And I said, well, what'd you think? Did you like it? And he said, well, I'd be okay if you made that maybe once a year.
Oh, that's a great love for that meal.
But what I didn't know is, because growing up, we didn't have a lot, and there were a lot of meals where we didn't have meat. Well, Neil always had meat at a meal, and I didn't serve any meat. But it took like 15 years of marriage for the rest of the story to come out for me to
Wow.
realize. But do you know, I never, ever, we married 34 years, I never made it again. Because,
Really?
You
yeah.
had 33 opportunities once a year.
Once a year, I know, look what I missed.
Well, my wife, we've been married 36 years, and for every day for an entire first year, she made me eggs for breakfast.
What a good woman.
She was, but after a year, I had to take a couple of years off eggs. I could not eat them anymore.
Yeah.
And she says, that's what I thought a wife was supposed to do, was just make the
Make
eggs.
eggs?
Make
Well,
eggs,
now we
yeah,
know.
now we know.
Yeah, my wife, because I never made macaroni and cheese before, and she says, okay, she was going out for some reason, and she said, make our daughter macaroni and cheese, and she's like 4 or 5 years old, and running around, I'm like doing this, reading this, and then she says, Dad, just pour it in there, push it there.
She's
And
4.
she starts, she says, no, Dad, let me do it, and then she cooks the whole meal, I'm just watching her.
So you still haven't made macaroni and cheese, even to this day.
That's true. And that's
Something
even
about
from the
macaroni.
box. Well, I'm not a big macaroni and cheese fan, but I like it okay, but it's not one of my favorites.
Yeah, I like
That's
it.
because I haven't cooked it for you yet.
Well,
I'll
that
make it
might
for
be.
you and your wife.
Well,
You will love it.
I don't make a good meatloaf, and one time I made meatloaf, and my wife woke me up in the middle of the night, and she yelled at me, and she says, Peter, wake up. There's a burglar in the house, and he's into your meatloaf. And I said, oh, relax, darling, I'll bury him in the morning. With that, Doug is going to continue with a question or two.
Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So you said earlier that you met Neil in a Bible study. How religious was Neil, and how religious were you at the time?
We were actually not religious at all. That's one of the beautiful things I loved about Neil and me is we were relationship with God. Deep relationship with God, but not religious. Not very strict in
Any one
that
denomination?
you must know denomination or you must attend church. It really was about a relationship with God. And so, I've been reflecting on relationships recently because I've also been thinking about time. I mean, I was married to Neil for 34 years. You were married 36 years. You were married 28?
25.
25. And you see...
I was going to say 25 long years.
But it's good that but I'm glad you said long because I've been thinking about how things that matter take time.
Yeah.
time, thinking about where I am now, 4 years beyond the loss of my husband, and all the things that God has done in my life has been over time. And I've been thinking about, fruit, like they talk about growing fruit. Fruit doesn't just like boink, it takes time to grow.
Especially pineapples.
Especially pineapples. So what was the original question? 'Cause I can't remember the question. I got so excited.
How religious
Oh yeah, thank you.
were you at the time?
We were both
put
we were both
your religion.
equally interested in a relationship with God, and actually very interested in impacting other people's lives. All of mine and Neil's marriage, we were really about impacting others in a good way, touching hearts, investing in lives. We did do missionary work because we believe that everybody ought to have a chance.
So how soon did you do missionary work after you were married?
I think we had our first anniversary on the mission field, first and second anniversary. On the
And
mission
where did you
Mission
go?
field.
Wow. We were involved in getting Bibles behind the Iron Curtain. So we lived in Austria, but we were working behind the Iron Curtain. And we were involved in that because we felt like everybody ought to have a choice. If you don't want to read the Bible, that's fine. But nobody ought to say to you, "Yeah, I can't." But that's just,
Or
we
there's
just
none
felt...
available.
Yeah, it should be
Yeah.
available to everyone. And we had some...
So would you sneak across the fence or?
I can't
Spy.
really share a lot of details. Because who knows when we might need that again, and I wouldn't want to damage the organization. That was a very honorable organization, and really was not, when they're at the border crossing, when questions were asked, that organization did not come up because they were so good at just being very, wise. But so yeah, we
You were careful and.
and how
Using talent.
and how that vetting who came in, teaching us how to be, and so yeah, we were quite committed. And when we came back, we actually came back from the mission field, overseas mission field, because of my mom's health. We did do some other missionary
Wow, that's fantastic.
homebound mission things.
And we'll find out about that after we come back.
We'll get back to our guest in just a moment. But
Do you have a story to tell?
would you, yes you, like to be a guest on the third chair?
Send us an email and tell us about yourself and your story.
And please follow us on social media.
Now back to the episode. Welcome to the third chair. We have Peter here, who between breaks is reading his dad's joke book.
Cheesy jokes
Cheesy jokes, is that what it says?
and corny jokes.
Not good.
Not good. I bought it for him. That's what
Yeah, you gave it to me for Christmas. Yeah,
I'm like,
it's
oh.
totally awesome.
Well, I figured it was the only book that he might understand. And we have Tracy here, who's gonna tell us. You said you had some missions when you came back from
Yes.
overseas in Austria.
Yeah, when we came home, for a while we were in Georgia, but we ended up going up to North Carolina and helping run a Christian camp and conference center, and did a lot of work with young people, which the age group we loved was high school and college. So we were involved in the very functional, I did office work, I helped in the kitchen, Neil ran the grounds, but we also got to be involved in the programming with the kids. We would have games and we would facilitate those games and just get to know the kids, and then as the kids got older, they might be on staff. And so like building relationships, which kind of takes me back to what I was saying earlier about time. The time of building relationships is worth investing, because some of those kids we still have contact with,
Oh, that's really
which
neat.
is really precious. Yeah.
And
So
I
then,
want to ask you how old those kids are.
well, they've got kids in college.
Wow.
So, in fact, when I'm going to be taking a trip down south, and I'm going to stay with two dear friends that were kids in camp, And then they were also on what we called ministry teams, because it was a really big camp. We could have 200 or 300 kids at a time.
Wow.
And so in order to promote the camp, we would have a music team and a puppet team. We would travel for about 15 weeks and promote the camp. And
So did you operate the puppets, or?
No. I kind of helped with soundboard a little bit. I
okay.
was just like, I was the wife. So I built relationships. But that they were kids in camp, and then they were on the ministry team, and then they worked on the camp, and then they ended up living with Neil and I for a little while, because we were at the camp for 5 years, and then we ended up going to Nashville and living in a garage with a garage door, and working at an inner city mission right in a really rough neighborhood where we worked with young kids. And that they came to Nashville and they lived with us for a while with their first son. And that brings me to something am I allowed to
You can
like
do
say stuff?
whatever you
All right, I'm gonna
say.
say
You're
stuff.
allowed to
Yeah.
do anything you
Yeah,
want.
if it gets too crazy, we might have to go.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll be listening to that sound. One of the things I love about Neil, and he was like a quiet, confident, kind, burly, manly man. But when we worked at this inner city mission, we ended up having to do all sorts of stuff, and he ended up having to teach the little guys. And it's the first time that I ever saw the way that Neil is with little kids, and it just like totally touched my heart. I was watching him with his class, and Neil was tall, and well, not super tall, but he was tall, and all these kids are like this big. So he walks into the classroom and he does this. Hey, how are you doing? And it was just like nobody told him to do that. It was just he knew that if I get down here, I'm going to connect. He really was a relationship builder, and that I just think is just so precious.
Wow.
So that was our other mission work, and then that was it as far as full-time, paid mission work. We ended up moving in '99. We ended up moving up to Maine and having full-time jobs, but just being very involved in our, we did the youth group, we did the college age group at our church, and just love that age group, love those relationships. They just
That's really nice.
really, yeah.
Go ahead. Okay.
Wait, I'm the only one that's allowed to speak out of turn. Whose turn is it?
Yeah, it's my turn.
It's your turn.
But this is a very short sort of prompt you shared with me. Okay. Throwing wrenches, wrench throwing. I don't know who's throwing it at who or why.
I love this story.
I hope there wasn't any arrests involved or jail time.
Is
Yeah.
this a sport?
Yeah.
Oh, this is like my favorite story, because it shows how much I've learned in my very short lifetime. So when Neil and I were newlyweds, Neil was very quiet and steady and everything, but every human being has a fuse. And if he, like one time we were working on the car, and he was under the car and I was holding the alternator, and it slipped out of my hands and it fell onto his hand. So, when things like that happened, or if he was trying to do something and he just couldn't get it to, he would like, "Arr!" and he would throw the wrench. And I used to think, he probably shouldn't throw that wrench. That's, probably he should, resist. And over the 34 years of marriage, he did actually begin to throw less wrenches. But since Neil died, and I have had to do so many things that Neil did,
Manual labor, woodworking,
installing curtain rods, or crawling under the mower and trying to figure out how to re-hook the belt or whatever. I fully advocate wrench throwing, and I wish that Neil was here so I could say, "Throw 'em, baby," because you just it is like the more I do the things that Neil did and see how frustrating it is, the more I respect and admire and love him, because he just did them,
Yeah, I think Jesus threw wrenches.
I pretty sure.
Yeah.
But he was a
It was in the temple.
He
Yeah,
was
it was in the
he
temple.
probably
Yeah.
threw hammers or something. Yeah.
Or an axe, a
An axe,
manly
yeah,
axe.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I am like I have been humbled by just the whole how hard life is sometimes.
Well, so I guess there's that verse like, "Be angry, but sin not."
Yeah.
It's an inanimate object.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's better to throw a wrench than punch someone. If you got to get that.
So they didn't need a wrench's break?
I don't know. I don't think so. They're metal.
Right.
So I try to throw my wrenches outside so they land on dirt instead of concrete. Because see now it used
I
to
thought
be.
he threw him down the driveway.
Well, he might have. I don't know because we lived in a lot of places.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's well. I appreciate your honesty on that. We hope that the neighbors aren't complaining at the.
Oh, they've lived pretty
too
far away.
Did you
Yeah.
scare the dogs?
I have scared the dogs a time or two. Yeah.
Wow.
But
I've scared my dog with my meatloaf.
But did you kill your dog with your meatloaf?
No.
Did your
she
dogs eat his meatloaf?
You
lost a dog.
We
Yeah.
wouldn't let Peter cook in our house.
Yeah, it's very
It would
tough.
be-
Yeah, you,
we heard about
Death
the
and
meatloaf.
carnage.
Yeah.
Well, I already threw your dog, so yeah.
Yeah.
That story is way overrated. It was barely a little toss.
Just
It
a
was-
toss.
It was a little dog.
Yeah,
That was the only thing
I mean-
little about the whole thing.
It wasn't like I had it.
She only weighed like 6 pounds.
It's not like I
poor
had her
thing.
in a David and Goliath slingshot. It's like, that's a. Now, you talked the story about Neil down with the kids. Was that sort of a general way that he approached building relationships?
He was a good relationship builder, and I did learn a lot from him because he was about connecting with people, whether it was eye to eye or just finding out what you loved and trying to love it too. That was really the way he worked.
Do you think if he was alive today and I had made meatloaf, he would have eaten it?
No, I think he probably would have
No,
talked
because
you
we
into
would have warned him.
catapulting it.
Yeah, we would have warned him.
He would have made it fun, like, let's throw it at Karma.
Poor Karma.
Poor
We,
Karma.
Poor Karma. She gets the brunt of all the bad news, or she did, anyways. Well,
Yeah,
we're gonna
'cause
take.
Peter's
sorry.
never had good karma after that.
What goes around comes around,
That's
baby.
right.
She knows how to get revenge.
That's
She
right,
does.
yeah.
Well, we're gonna come back, and Doug is gonna ask the tough questions when we
good.
come back from
Tough.
this break.
The official coffee of the Kentucky-Arizona Walnut Association?
It's kava.
The national coffee of Kawasaki, Japan?
It's kava.
Hiya!
Is it the secret elixir of the surfers in Hawaii?
Or is it the secret island recipe of Kona, Koala, Kauai, or Cola? It's kava. Kava is Polish for coffee. And here at Kava Coffee,
we focus on serving a delicious, high-quality cup of coffee in a space where love, coffee, and people mix into the perfect blend.
We value our relationships with our customers and our roasters. Buy locally whenever possible and truly have the homemade touch. Our pastries, syrups, and even our almond milk made in-house.
So come on in, relax, get some work done. Enjoy the Kava community, some encouraging words from the Kava Coffee Gang.
Kava Coffee.
Be awake.
Welcome to the third chair. We're here with my partner Peter.
Yo!
You know, he's getting new dialogue in 2022.
Yeah.
Yo!
And lovely Tracy here. And
You didn't get a lovely.
No.
No. Thank you.
and you're not gonna get one of me.
Thanks, babe. Inside joke.
I know it.
Our table
Yeah.
playing dominoes, yeah.
So we're talking about a tough subject. You know, Neil getting cancer. How did you find out about the cancer?
Well, he had always had a bit of reflux, and we had adjusted our eating in order to help that. So we didn't eat a lot of sugar, we didn't eat a lot of spicy food. And so one probably October, he said to me, I'm kind of having more trouble swallowing. So we went to the store and we got, I don't know, purple pill, Prilosec or something, whatever.
Yeah.
And then he actually went away. His brothers would do a fishing weekend, and so he went away fishing, and he came back. And I remember the day I made his favorite dish, which was Canadian black bean soup. And he was sitting in the recliner, and I, being a good wife, I brought him his meal, and he started eating it, and he stopped and he looked at me. He said, "I think I got a problem. I can't swallow." So that was on the weekend. And so on Monday morning, he called his doctor, and his doctor said, "Oh, you're not a patient here anymore because you haven't been in a year." And so we were like, "Oh my, what do we do?
Wow, you got
We had a
strict
problem."
Hospitals in Maine.
Well, that particular doctor. So I called another doctor, explained what was going on, and they said, "We'll see you at 12:45. So when we went in, they said, "Oh, you probably just have like an esophageal stricture. It's something very common. We're going to schedule something called an EGD. And we can go down in and look around, and they can like do this thing where they like stretch the esophagus so you can swallow." So we're like, "That's good." That was in November.
Yeah, it does sound good.
Yeah, it sounded great. It actually took until December the 21st to actually get an appointment. So we didn't really know what was going on, and you kind of like, you get this slowly rising tension building. Something's going on. We can't, we called the local hospital. It's very expensive, and so, and they were going to be like, I can remember Neil on the phone, him saying, "March, I'll be dead by then. Are you kidding me?" So we did end up getting an appointment at a really great hospital in Bangor. And so we went for the appointment, and everybody was lovely. And they let me go back with him until he had the anesthesiology and everything. And I was in the waiting room, and everything's normal. And when the nurse came to get me, it was quicker than I expected. And we were walking down the hall, and we were talking, and I just caught a current. Something, I'm like, I think we might be in trouble. And so when I went in, the doctor said we could not even get the tube down his throat. He said there's like a lesion blocking it, so we took a biopsy. And I just remember thinking, I just didn't know what to think. But what I remember later, I keep a gift list, and one of the things that I wrote was that in that moment, I got to be wholly with my husband, just completely with him, held his hand. And we actually, that was December 21st, I don't think we stopped holding hands, like for 3 days. You know, I brought him home and put him in his recliner. And the dogs slept right beside him. And I think it was the next day we went Christmas shopping, because we hadn't been Christmas shopping yet. That was a busy time of year for us. And I remember, like, we always used to, like, okay, we're going to separate. I'll have my cart, you have your cart. Don't you look in my cart. And this year we just held hands and walked around. And he said, I want that. And I put it in. And I said, I want that. You know, we just did a little Christmas shopping. And I remember one of the things that happened was that the doctor wanted him to have some sort of a, like the purple pill, but super strong. And because he couldn't swallow, they had ordered a liquid one, and we went to the pharmacy, and it was going to be $400. And I remember the pharmacist just looking at the look on her face and said, hold on, let me make some phone calls. And so he did all this work behind the counter, all this phone calls, and ended up getting us a $36 prescription that Neil could take with applesauce. So anyway, that was December 21st. We had Christmas. Actually, we had Christmas Eve because Neil was a luthier. He built stringed instruments, and he had gotten really quite good. And some people in Norway had found out about us, and they wanted to come and see us. And so the only time they could come was Christmas Eve, and we said, sure, come on. And so we, like, whenever we had visitors, we would, like, set up the shop. We set up the shop, had all the instruments out, and we had, like, this awesome visit, and they stayed really late. And so we just said, we're just going to leave. We're just going to leave everything in the shop. We're not going to, we'll come back. We had Christmas Eve with his family. We had Christmas Day, precious. And then December the 26th, the morning of the 26th, the phone rang, and it was the doctor. And he said, I am sorry, but you have esophageal cancer, and it's probably stage 3 or 4. And I remember 2 things. I remember my husband saying to the doctor, it's okay, I am in God's hands. That was his first response. And his sister was there, which was like never spent the night. She happened to spend the night. And I remember that after he hung up and he told us the news, Sandy said, would you get your guitar out and can we just sit and sing some worship songs to God? And so we did. We sat and we sang. We each picked our favorite worship song. And mine was you are faithful through all the years you were faithful to me, because I do feel like God was. And so that began our short but long journey from December 26th until when Neil died on April 8th. And he did spend the last 30 days of his life in the hospital. I lived in the hospital with him. And I am so grateful that all this happened before COVID, because I slept by his bed in the hospital, and there's so many who have not been able to be with their beloved during this. That's been for me, one of the greatest heartaches as I watch people with loved ones who are sick and they can't be there with them. It really does break my heart. So anyway, that was, that's how we found it, and it was a pretty big shock. We just assumed that it was an esophageal stricture, and we were just doing life. And just a quick story, one of the things that happened was, obviously, we didn't think about work. We didn't go back in the shop for a week. And when we did go in the shop, Neil had 2 brand new instruments that he had just built, and from being out in the cold, they had split front and back. And in a lot of ways, we were like, we can walk. The cancer was so big, we knew we'd have to walk through it with God, and we were like, we weren't okay about it, but we were okay about it. But having our livelihood split before our very eyes was like a tragedy. But I'm grateful it happened, because a year later, after Neil passed away, I was able to get those 2 instruments repaired, and I have the last 2 guitars that Neil built. And I wouldn't have had them if they hadn't split, because we would have sold them to pay bills.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. that last month in the hospital, I can't imagine how hard that was. Do you look back on that time and have, I don't know, a different frame or perspective now? It's 4 years later.
I have the same frame as I did then, that God was so merciful. We did not realize how desperately sick Neil was. And so our time was what it always, we weren't spending all our time thinking how bad it was. We were spending our time making an effort to connect with people. That's what we were about. So that last month when Neil was in the hospital, we were like connecting with CNAs and nurses and neighboring patients. And it was a precious, precious time. It was hard. It was very hard.
Can't
But
imagine.
I got to spend every minute with him.
Mm-hmm.
It was precious. Yeah. Hard, very hard, but I am grateful for it.
Mm. Well,
We'll come back next episode and
talk a little more about that.
more about this.
Okay.
Yeah, when we come back on our final segment, we're going to talk a little bit about you carrying on the woodworking instrument business, some thoughts about that. And then we'll have some, and then our next show we'll have some time to talk about Neil and the journey with cancer a little bit more too.
Okay.
When we come right back.
Welcome to the third chair.
Who's in charge here?
Or one of us is in charge. I think it's Tracy. Thank goodness.
Welcome to whatever segment. I'm here
Segment
with my
5.
co-hosts Peter and Doug.
Thank you, thank you. That's what happens when the extrovert chooses not to talk. Yeah. Well, welcome back. Yes, we're with Tracy Flewelling. Is that right?
Very well
it's
done.
Very Welsh.
I've heard worse.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's in the top 1 billion.
Yeah, occasionally, the only thing I say better than that is make meatloaf. But we are back. We're talking with you. This last segment was pretty intense. You talked about Neil getting esophageal cancer and how hard that was. And our next episode, we'll probably talk about that a little bit more, because I know people are. One of the reasons they watch the shows, they like to hear stories about how people go through these horrible, hard things and come out okay, and there's reasons for that. But in the meantime, you've carried on woodworking and a run at guitar making. Tell us about that.
Well, when I knew it wasn't going to end well for Neil, I remember thinking, because I had worked with Neil full-time 5.5 years in the shop. Before that, I had been a bookkeeper. And I remember just saying, oh, God, please don't make me go back to a desk. I think that it will just crush my little spirit. And I really felt like God said, it's okay. It's going to be all right. And so we have a company that we've been taking care of for 15 years, do the exclusive woodworking on. When I started working with Neil, he did the guitars. I did that woodworking, or about 70 or 80% of it. And then as years went by and I learned more and more, I increased the more percentage. But after Neil died, my first months were just getting caught up on that woodworking. But I did in September, I thought, I'd like to know if I had built a couple guitars with Neil. And I thought, I wonder if I can do that. And so I went away to a school in Vermont for 2 weeks and built a really nice guitar. But while I was there, I realized that I can't build guitars. I've got the woodworking chops. I do, nice woodworking, and I'm not being braggy. It's just a fact. But I don't understand the geometry about building. You can build a really pretty guitar that doesn't sound good. So I haven't built any guitars, but I do the woodworking, and I've also been doing tables and pizza peels and cutting boards and coasters and stuff. And I love it. I cannot believe that I get to do this. This is what I do. I walk to work with my dog, and I make wooden stuff. I got a shirt for Christmas that says, "I make things out of wood. What is your superpower?" And I thought, are you kidding me? That's as good as it gets.
So, question for you then, and that is, I know you are involved with companies that people can order some of your products. Can an individual do that, or is this just like an order for a big group? How does that work? And Sharon, for any information you'd like.
Okay. The product that I've been making for 15 years on it, part-time and then full-time, is actually only available through that. It's a church supply. Most people wouldn't order that. But my product is available in 2 stores in Maine, 1 store in New Hampshire, and is now available on a website. So I do take website orders, and
ship them.
Yeah,
So if us here in Colorado wanted to order a liturgical cross, we could order something.
You'd
and
have
ship
to
it.
do that through the company that I work for, that I produce for. But if you wanted a table, I would ship it to you.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
right, yeah.
All right. So there's 2 parts to that.
Yeah, 2.
And so, what information would you like to share with the fans and our followers and supporters of this broadcast? Is there a website?
There is a website, and it will be across the bottom of the screen.
Okay.
And I can also, on the website is contact information for me as far as a phone number or whatever. There'd be, photos of the possible products or actual products for sale.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here for this first episode. We have the privilege of having you back next week. The next episode is also going to be a little on the intense side. Again, talking a little bit about that last month. And I think it's really important for people to learn what they can from that, because a lot of people suffer that way. Please like, share, subscribe, and ring the notification bell icon. From 2 Men and a Duck Entertainment and the Third Chair, thank you and good night, and we'll see you next week.
This has been The Third Chair. Want to be a guest? Want to sponsor our show? Send us an email. Please subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media.